Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Property Hustler Show. Today, we're going to be talking about rent-to-own programs in 2023. Is it a viable solution for real estate investors and also tenants who are looking to buy properties in today's Canadian real estate market? My name is Andrew, and Ping and I are joined by Alfonso Salemi, who is the co-founder and co-owner of Jag Properties, and he is also a Hamilton-strong real estate investor and a recently new father of his new little boy. Alfonso, really great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me here today.
You know, there were stigmas with rent-to-own, right? And some of the
I'm
stigmas...
open to talk about those as well, too. So the stigmas that around that is because you've heard complaints about Disneyland. You've heard complaints about realtors, mortgage brokers, REITs, different investments, right? So every industry has that. But the stigma around rent-to-own is really when it's set up wrong, when it's not set up for the success of the tenant buyer. So there was a story I just told this morning to a group of people, and we don't know him. We're not associated with him. I've never met him. But the story goes, he had one single family home, found the tenant buyer, took their deposit money. They were never going to be able to qualify. They didn't have the right amount of income. They didn't have the right amount of deposit. They didn't have the credit, but he needed some cash flow. He needed to cover his costs. So he accepted him into the program. In a matter of time, over 2, 3, 4 months, sure, they were able to pay that monthly payment. But by month 6 or 7 or 8, it was unattainable for them. In the contracts, it says, okay, you can't pay. Now get out. Brought in another person. He did this 9 times. Wow. Where he brought in deposit, couldn't pay, kicked out. Deposit, couldn't pay, kicked out. For over 4 years, I'm sure, and I don't know the numbers for sure, but I'm sure that he paid off his mortgage with those deposits or any rent money.
Yeah, because how much is the deposit in a standard rent-to-own program that you have to pay? So like 2.5 or 5%?
Well, usually our minimum is 3%, and the monthly payments are based on you. Either of you guys, Bing, Andrew, you could be qualified for the same, whatever, $700,000 home today. Your payments might be lower because you had a larger deposit at the beginning. You have less to save. Maybe yours was lower, so your payments are higher to collect that monthly payment. So the exact same purchase price, same mortgage, taxes, insurance, but your payments are going to be different because you need to save up less and you need to save up more. Yeah,
it sounds like kind of like with private lenders on mortgages when you're working on that, they kind of just balance it out. If you can't do the 2% lender fee in the beginning, they just charge you more interest on the carry, right? So they just kind of work it out.
The main 3 things that we always stress to our, whether it's our tenant buyers, whether it's our joint venture partners, to the realtor partners, income, down payment, credit. Those 3 things. If the tenant buyer can show that they're making income, they have full-time employment, it's stable job, stable income, that's good, right? Down payment or the deposit at the beginning of the program, that 3%. And what do they need by the end? If they need to get 20% by the end because they've had a bankruptcy or consumer proposal, then we'd probably say, you know what, you need a little bit more up front. And then credit. Credit is like a snowflake. Everybody is different. All 3 of us could have the exact same credit score, say whatever, 655.
Yeah.
But yours is because you have student loans. Yours is because you don't pay your bills on time. Mine, because I don't have enough credit cards or I don't use my credit enough. It's different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not taking the time to review those things of where that person is now, beginning of the program, and then what do they need to do to accomplish the success at the end, that's the huge part. And again, I'm biased to our model, but we're a client first. So we qualify the client first, give them a number, they go and choose the home. I don't buy 3 or 5 or 10 properties and say, all right, now I'm looking for somebody to rent to own them. They're going to live there. They want a bigger backyard. They want a finished basement. They want an extra bedroom, a shed. What do I know what they want? If they're going to live there, it's going to be their home to buy.
What's your success rate when it comes to the buyer clients? Like your buyer, rental buyer? Tenant buyer?
Tenant buyer. Yeah, we call them tenant buyers, clients. We use that interchangeably, but over a 96% success rate. Over 96% because of the upfront screening, the time, the diligence that we take at the beginning of the program. First of all, to get to know the client, understand what their issues are, what's preventing them today to qualify for conventional financing, right?
So the business is called, I noticed you had the slogan, and I honestly, the first time I looked it up, I thought it was a typo because it's not rent to own, it's rent to home.
Rent to home.
And I like that because that is actually what people are doing that program for. They're renting to get ownership of the home.
Yes.
So that sounds very good. So when you're doing that, you're obviously doing this as an intermediary service, right? For property owners who want to get into that as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do property owners ever feel like they want the tenant to fail? Because I think that also ties in one of the stigmas, right?
The ones that we work with don't. And
so you filter the homeowners too.
Yes, we screen through our joint venture partners as well. If they're maybe a little bit greedy or saying, hey, we can charge more, right? And even through the pandemic, like we saw double-digit appreciation increases in most markets, right? Where we use a very conservative appreciation. So the tenant buyers were actually buying the home much lower than market value because of the agreement that we made. We cash flowed and we made double-digit % returns on those investments. Could we have sold the home for a higher price on the open market? No shadow of a doubt. Absolutely. But the fact that we're able to help a family make great returns, the ones that are like hoping they're fail, or even if that comes out of their mouth, we know right there and then, great, they could do 20 deals, not with us, because we have the client's best purpose in mind. We have our purpose. We have the joint venture partners. Everybody needs to win. Everybody needs to walk away from the deal, from the project, feeling like they got the better end of it, right? And if we can achieve that, that's what's going to create the longevity for success.
What's the market return that you guys are looking for?
Like on the actual deal itself. So typically, and again, nothing is guaranteed. We can't use that word, guaranteed. But typically, our joint venture partners are getting anywhere, I would say 17, 18% per year on their investment. That's monthly cash flow and the sell back at the end of the term.
That's actually pretty good. And how much will you budget for the market appreciation for the tenants?
Again, we'll look at a few different things. The two main things that we look at is we'll look at a market area. So say we're here in Hamilton, my favorite city, right? We'll look at, okay, what has it done historically? The last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe even we'll go back into the 90s a little bit, take a look at, okay, what has that market done? What's the average over that longer period of time, 20 to 30 years? That's the first thing. The second thing, and more importantly, we're going to look at what the client's able to qualify for at the end of the term. We know what their income is. We know the down payment that we're trying to save for them. We actually reverse engineer it. We say, what are you going to actually be able to qualify for at the end? And then that's going to base what today's purchase price is, what they're going to buy for at the end.
Is that usually 2, 3, 4 years? Or
yeah, most programs are anywhere between 2 to 4 years. The vast majority are 3 years, just because it takes that time to save, improve credit. And even when we're talking about claiming income properly, like the self-employed or small business owners, they'll need at least 1 or 2 or 3, tax returns to show that proper income.
I feel that rent-to-own programs also go in phases of popularity, right? In terms of when people are attracted to it, when people are looking into it as a viable option, as an alternative. Like right now, for example, the market shifting, we're finding that they say it's a buyer's market, right? But not enough, but there's properties on the market and they're just not moving, right? So although it's a buyer's market, it's still hard for ordinary people to get into homes. And we've been hearing chatter about rent-to-own, whether or not this is a viable option or a viable alternative in the current state of the market, which I think it's actually beneficial for both current tenants who are looking to get into homeownership, property owners, landlords who want to also rent out their home and maybe not sell it quite just yet. It seems like it can be a real win-win situation for both parties. And the question I have to that is, do you think that right now rent-to-own is a stronger option in the current market?
When will people need to stop living in homes? Not anytime soon, right? I don't know. Maybe Elon's going to get us to the moon and we're going to live in our pods or something like that. I don't think home ownership is going to go out of style or living in homes go out of style. What attracted me to this strategy in general when I first started learning about real estate investing and all the different strategies that you can do is that this works in an up market, a down market, a flat market, a buyer's market, a seller's market, high appreciating markets, flat markets. People are always going to need somewhere to live, and banks are always going to deny people because of certain reasons. People are always going to have credit issues because of life circumstances that they extend their credit cards or lines of credit, right? There's always going to be self-employed, small business owners. I think in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been more small businesses open than in the last 50 years, right? So small business, self-employed individuals that the banks and lenders don't necessarily love lending to. They have to jump through a lot more hoops. And then again, with consumer proposals, bankruptcies, life circumstances that have caused people to get into that debt, the credit issues is people don't understand it. Unfortunately, the school systems, even, here in Canada, don't do a good enough job of educating people about their credit. They educate them about, isosceles triangles and, that kind of stuff, but not about people's credit and how it's built. I bet if we were to just walk around and, we poll 10 people or 100 people and you ask what your credit score was, maybe they'll know and they can pull it up on their app really quick on their phone. But then the second question is, what is the credit score made up of? How is that number derived? Where does that come from? I bet you that percentage is less than 5%.
No one ever thinks about it, right?
Exactly. So just think about the power of having someone on your side that's teaching you, educating you about your credit, how to utilize that to get that score up. That's the power. Even as investors, if your credit's good, if you're talking to a private lender or a bank or monoline, whatever, the better your credit, the better your track record. That's what that is. Our own personal track record, our credit scores of the likeliness of paying back, the more likeliness that you're going to get money. You're going to be able to loan money at a pretty attractive interest rate, even in this time.
So that's interesting. So is that something that you also do and you work with the tenants to help them build themselves up to that?
That is probably the most important thing we do. The home is great. That's our security. It's real estate, working with realtors, mortgage brokers. But during the program, all of our clients have access to our credit team. So at a minimum 4 times per year, our clients have scheduled phone calls with credit specialists, money coaching, if you will, to talk about their current situation. They have access to our team anytime. They can email every day, phone call every week, ask questions. I was at the store and they're offering this credit card and I'm going to get 50% of my groceries off if I get this credit card. Is it a good idea? I call it credit 411. So if they have issues or problems or questions, they can call us. We just don't want it to be a credit 911 to say, hey, I just bought a car. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. Can you help me? That's a 911 at that point.
Yeah. And by the way, how do you find these people?
Many different ways. Our favorite source is realtors, mortgage brokers. They don't get paid unless they close a deal, right? So if a real estate agent has a client, they want to buy a home, they're typically going to refer them to the bank, the mortgage broker. And if they can't qualify, the realtor is going to say, I really like you, but I'm not going to drive you around in my fancy car and pay premium gas because you can't buy. The realtors, mortgage brokers that have clients that can't qualify, that's been a great resource. We do a lot of our own marketing, social media, appearing on awesome podcasts like such as your own. But we really try to get out, network into the communities where these people are, right? So that's the main source. The professionals, but then again, a lot of our own organic stuff that we do.
By the way, I really like this model because you pretty much have determined who the end user is going to be, like who the end consumer is going to be, so that you don't have to worry about the selling process. And if the market shifted to a different direction, like right now, you still have the contract in place, so you don't ever have to worry about what if the home doesn't sell, how to actually get the capital back. So I think it's a very smart model. And I think you answered the questions earlier that if people are getting a little greedy, you won't be able to working with them. But there's probably going to be a lot of people last year or 2 years ago seeing that the market shifts has gone up so much that you kind of need to have that kind of conversation with those investors. How did you handle that kind of conversation?
Well, again, if you're one of my joint venture partners and for the last 3 years, you've been receiving, a significant amount of cash flow on a monthly basis. Now we have an end purchase price where you're going to get a nice lump sum of money. You're going to get your initial capital back. And it equates to that minimum of 18% per year. I'm not going to feel sorry for it because you want 25 or 30 or 40% return on investment. So that's that agreement, that it's the purchase option contract that we sign, that it protects the tenant buyer, it protects the joint venture partner, it protects us, and it keeps everybody honest, and it keeps everybody to the point where that is the goal, is to sell it back at that price.
And that brings me to another question: that what happens if the tenant client decide not to default on the rent? Let's say if they don't see the end of the tunnel, they don't think that this is going to work out, and all of a sudden they were like, okay, our plan has shifted. How do you deal with it when tenant client actually stop paying rent? Is that going to be the same process for tribunal?
So the first part of that is, again, because of our screening process, we're interviewing them. They want to become homeowners. So again, we're making sure that first of all, they're financially that they can make those rent payments every single month. But in the case that they don't, or something's changed in their life and they're not able to make that rent payment, unfortunately, we have to go through the landlord-tenant board tribunal. There is a rent agreement, standard tenant lease agreement that we sign with the tenant buyer. So they are renters. For that portion of that time, they are renters. So again, I can see the wheels turning. There's a good question coming, so don't forget it. But if they're not paying rent, then we would serve. Like on the 2nd of the month would be the N4, and then 14 days later, we start that eviction process. And then we're subject to whatever the landlord-tenant board at that point of timing and things like that. But if they continue to pay rent now, most of the time, the tenant buyers that we're working with, they'll call us, the last week of the month and say, hey, my pay's coming in late, or something happened with life. I'm not able to make that payment. I want to let you guys know that the payment's going to be late. No problem. We'll still go through the same process of serving the forms because that's just what a good landlord should do. But we have some leeway, right? They've given us a large deposit at the beginning of the program. And again, if the case that they don't pay, then we have to go through the legal course of doing that. But again, we can make payment plans, meet them where they are in terms of what their life circumstance at that point.
Good thing about this program is that you already collect the lump sum in the very beginning. So you can literally use that towards, utilize those deposit towards your rent.
Yeah, as you're saying this, like honestly, I'm attracted to it. It sounds great, actually, right? Because
a lot of security.
Yeah, there's a lot of securities, and technically speaking, this almost lines up kind of the way landlords used to collect security deposits and other such things. Except the idea with it at the end is that it all goes towards home ownership for the tenant at the end, and you as a landlord should have hopefully negotiated a profitable deal for yourself too, as long as that's within your cards or within your plan to sell. These tenants are still recognized in the standard way as tenants, and they would be under the RTA and go through the landlord and tenant board. Does the landlord and tenant board recognize and deal with these private contracts for rent-to-own programs.
Their jurisdiction is the tenant lease agreement.
Yeah.
Right. So that lease agreement of them paying that rent payment or that lease payment every single month,
Yeah.
if those are late, that's what they're dealing with. The other contracts, those are dealt with in other courts.
Okay, so the deposit to go towards a down payment that they give
Mhm.
is outside the lease.
That's right. So there's a second agreement.
Yeah.
It's we call our purchase option contract. So that
Okay.
is like kind of like a receipt or a proof of funds that the tenant buyer says, I'm giving $35,000 as a deposit. I'm paying $500 a month. That's going to be credited back to me for a 3-year period. And it also has what that future purchase price is going to be. That's locked in at the beginning of the program.
By the way, this sounds amazing. This sounds like there's tons of benefits here. I like win-win situations, and this sounds like there's a win-win situation for both property owners and tenants. Because right now, did you hear about the whole thing with Airbnb? How they're trying to really reel that in and
Yes.
make it
Hamilton
licensed.
especially here. Yes.
Yeah, they're talking about it, and we might be seeing some shifts there. And the reason why I want to mention this is because a lot of property owners, people who are flipping houses and didn't want to sell, they need to hold and they need to wait until the market stabilizes or recovers or something happens. They have turned to Airbnb to be able to generate some extra income so that they can rent out their properties in that fashion and not have the risk of having a tenant that won't leave and then you can't sell your property.
That's right.
And you're stuck with it, right? And then you just renovated the whole thing. And the worst is if you find somebody who's going to just simply not pay rent.
Yep.
So people are worried. But this almost is like it gives you a vetting process. It takes that population that was about to buy and that maybe now because of the shift in the market, they're on the cusp of being able to buy, but they just need to get a few more things together. And it gives you a far more qualified tenant that may potentially offer you far less problems.
Absolutely. And that's why we call them tenant buyers, because they're tenants now, but they are going to be buyers. It's a home ownership in training, if you will, right? Because they have that owner's mentality. They're choosing the home, the area they want to be, their family, that security, that stability. It's not a renter's mentality where, I'm going to live here for first and last, no problem. I'm going to try this place out for 6 months, or, hey, you know what? These guys, I'm not going to pay them, and sometimes, we've all heard of the professional tenants that know the laws and they can go place to place to place. And as long as they have that first and last that they can go and give to someone, they're living rent free. We really try to eliminate that. We want to meet people where they are and actually match their effort and double that and say, hey, if you want to be a homeowner, we're going to help you. We're going to give you all the tools that you need. You got to put in the effort, but we're going to help you along that way. Almost like a personal trainer for your financing.
Yeah, and I like that the effort is actually tied in with the financial, right? You need to leave a significant deposit, and you need to pay additional on top of your base rent, right? So all the effort, if it's consistent, they're working towards that direction.
And it's not entirely a trade-off. Like I think the biggest worry a property owner or a landlord would have with what happens if I'm undercutting myself.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you maybe didn't undercut yourself and you ended up like the market shifted and you're selling it for technically more in a safer manner? That can also work in your favor. So it's really a little bit when you're projecting the property price in 3 years, 5 years, however long it might be, you really are gambling a little bit on that. You're kind of, hedging yourself a little bit. We often talk about how a lot of real estate investors are broke. A lot of landlords are poor, and they're always banking on the future equity, the future money that will come. The thing I like about your motto is actually it puts money in your pocket now. Today, and you can be profitable today. And as long as you can be profitable today, money in your pockets now is actually far more valuable in your money than money later because you can do something with it now.
To me, and through the education that I got through mentors, through real estate investors that blazed the trail long before I even knew you could invest in real estate, was you don't invest for future appreciation. That is the cherry on top. That's the bonus. That's the extra. If you can get cash flow, mortgage pay down, right, and build equity, force equity into the home, then what the market does, that's none of us have control on that, right? The appreciation is the cherry on top, the bonus at the end. If that's the only out of those 4 things that is positive on that, no deal for me, because I want that cash flow. I want to force that equity. And I want, solid people in my properties that we're helping as well.
Okay, so Alfonso, when we're in a depreciation market, rent is like through the roof, right? Has gone through the roof. And how do you find people who's able to actually afford that rent plus the additional portion? Yeah,
again, there's a lot of good people out there, like you're saying, like that, have good jobs. Young professionals is a great example. They're coming out of school and are getting into 6-figure jobs, whether those are accountants, physiotherapists, all in the healthcare, all these types of jobs, but they have this big debt. They just got their diploma, but they also got this big debt on their hands as well.
Yeah.
Student loans, right? The newcomers into the country. That for me, I love all of our tenant buyers. Don't get me wrong. They all have their own life situations. But for me, the newcomers that are coming into this country, they're coming here for work, they're coming here because of jobs, they're coming here to give their family a better life because where they're leaving is there's no opportunity. I'm come from a family of immigrants. My grandfather immigrated here from Italy in the mid 60s. He came here to work because there wasn't work in Italy. He looked everywhere. He couldn't find a way to provide for my mother and my grandmother. So he came to Canada. He came here to provide a better life. He got a job. He's working construction, breaking his back every single day on the weekends, going to fruit farms, picking the fruit, working extra shifts, overtime, finding everything that he could. And he was nervous. He was scared to get a mortgage because when you were loaning money or receiving a loan in Italy, you know, it wasn't like notice payments or late due payments or N4s. There's like physical repercussions for late payments or non-paybacks, right?
That was a different time.
Yeah, absolutely. So when he came here, he thought, I'm not going to borrow this money because if I can't pay it back, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family?
Yeah.
Luckily, he had his community, his friends, his family that were here, 5, 6, 10 years before him that kind of knew the ropes a little bit. They could refer them to, a mortgage broker, a realtor that understood this. So he took that chance and he said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go get a mortgage. I'm going to buy a home for my family. Unfortunately, it is so difficult for that today. Someone comes over here and even gets a great job. The system is not set up for success for the common person to go and own their home. It's actually quite the opposite. And that's what we're trying to fight against. We're never going to win the battle against the big banks. That's not the goal. But if we can help more people every single year start their path and then every single year get into their home and be that, titled owner and home ownership, that to me is where the win-win is. Yes, the returns are fantastic. The cash flow is great. Those have to be there or it's not an investment. But the fact that we're able to help people along the way, that's where really, really it connects for me.
Do most people choose single family or duplex or triplex?
Oh, yeah. You know what? There are a lot more single family homes, I would say, but we've had a few actually, younger tenant buyers that are already thinking ahead. And I love this because now they're in their mid-20s thinking, if I can own this home, look, it has a side entrance already. I can convert this into a legal duplex. Once I become the owner, now I can start making cash flow. I can live upstairs, rent out the basement, vice versa. Or maybe I'll move back home and rent out both units. But the majority are single family homes. But we've worked with all different types of properties. Single family, semi-detached, row townhomes, high-rise condos, all different types of properties.
Honestly, I do love everything that you're saying because it really does offer opportunity. You even said it, you are helping people. And I do actually believe sometimes people say they're helping people and it's not exactly clear as to how you're helping people, right? But by providing a platform and you're giving an opportunity for people who, it's not like they have to have extremely broad and lofty goals, right? It's just, I want to own a house that has an additional unit so that it's multi-unit and I can rent it out and eventually have a home. That's like a pretty attainable goal to have, especially if you have an option like rent to own to pursue and you only have to control your own faculties. Like I have to maintain my job. I have to make sure I make this much money. I have a partner who can contribute to this. It's very attainable, I think, when you look at creative options like this. But even to the point of like, yeah, things are changing and times are getting harder. New immigrants coming in today, it's harder for them to buy properties. What are they supposed to do, right? But is it that the world is getting harder and people can't do things, or is it that people need help? And I think people need help.
I think it's a combination of the two, definitely. And I was talking about the school systems and credit. People that have lived here their whole lives don't understand how credit works. Imagine coming from a different country, first of all, learning a language, learning, what side of the road to drive on, where to go, where to get your groceries, all that kind of stuff. And now having to learn about credit, like, probably by looking at me, you wouldn't think this, but I consider myself a pretty athletic guy. Play some certain sports and, tennis and things like that. However, if I were to get onto, say, I don't know, a cricket field, okay, I don't know the rules of the game. Maybe I'm going to get lucky and I'll hit a ball and I'll run somewhere and I'll get a point or something like that. But if I don't know the rules of the game, I'm not going to be successful at one, playing it, and there's no way that I'm going to win it. That's the thing that we're trying to instill in our tenant buyers is educate them of the rules. So the help that you're talking about, the rules are always constantly changing. Probably in the time that we've recorded this, there's 5 other different mortgage rules and from 3 other lenders that they've sent out to emails and things like that. That's the only thing that will stay the same. Things are going to constantly change. But the help of getting that own personal knowledge, you can Google, how does credit work? How does credit score? Starting there, but then having someone that's actually going to share with you your personal situation, that you have exactly this amount of debt, this amount of credit, and actually putting it in simulators and saying, okay, let's look at if we pay down this and we, start paying the Rogers bill on time or Bell or TELUS or whoever, right? Start doing those things of actually showing what the opportunities that you have. That's where it's powerful, because information is great, but it's how you apply it to your own self and do that. And that accountability, that's where it's at. The self accountability is probably the hardest thing. There's probably a reason why you guys are really successful and do these podcasts, because if it was one of you on your own, be like, oh, I don't feel like it today, or I don't, but the day that you don't feel that good, he's going to motivate you, and vice versa, to say, hey, come on, let's do it. We can do this. This is tough. If you have someone there helping you, there's a higher likeliness of success.
It's like having, and it's like having a gym buddy, really. Like you go there and you kind of like, if somebody's not feeling it, you do it. So, and it really sounds like, from what you're saying, it's almost like you're a buy a house coach.
You got it.
It really sounds like that. You're just like, this is how you do it. This is what you got to do.
I love that. I'm going to use that.
That's exactly what the first thing that comes to mind. There are services I know for how to rebuild your credit, how to do this. And it sounds like you're pretty much doing that job. And
so we don't do that separately. We only help from that sense from the clients that are in our rent-to-home program. One day that might evolve and that might be another service that we offer. But today, that's for that service that we provide is for the clients that are in our rent-to-home program.
Yeah.
Like I said, with over 90 current active clients in our program, it's difficult enough to manage that end goal. If I'm offering this type of service to somebody that's, I just want to improve my credit. Well, why? Well, I heard it's a good idea. What accountability or what, goals do they want to achieve? If we have someone that if they do this, they're going to be able to buy their home, again, the likeliness goes up.
When you first came on the show, my impression of rent-to-own programs was pretty negative, and the way that you're talking about it, it seems really positive.
If it's done right and it's done to help the client, help the joint venture partner, help the rent-to-own provider, the professionals in the industry, because the realtors and mortgage brokers, they benefit from this as well too. Home inspectors, insurance agents, lawyers, right? So there's multiple wins. You said you love win-win. I think at one point I counted like 7 different wins for the different people that are involved, right? Because again, it's got to be beneficial for everyone involved.
Can you imagine doing a commercial? In my business, there are no losers.
yeah, I love that.
Question for you. So now that we talk about the tenant client, I think that's very clear that it's actually a pretty good program. It doesn't matter if it's in the appreciating market or like the depreciating market. I think it really helps people to have that ownership down the road. The reason why we failed when we tried to do that is literally because we feel like there was a lot of moving parts with the people, right? Mm-hmm. Tenant client was one of them, and we actually had that really good client, ideal client that we were looking for. And when we're trying to find that property, we were having a lot of concern with the investors where they invest the money and they take on the title, and it's 3 to 4 years, or in some cases could be 5 years. The timeline is extremely long. Sometimes we don't have control over the investors when it comes to refinancing the property or what they want to do with that property. And we never want to put ourselves into a position where 3 to 5 years down the road, our investor client changed their mind for whatever reason. So how do you mitigate that kind of risks?
Yeah, so when we're talking to potential joint venture partners or individuals, families, couples that are interested in partnering with us, we're letting them know, saying we're going to buy at this price, we're going to sell at this price. This program specifically is going to be 3 years. If you need your money earlier, in 12 months or 18 months, this is not the project for you. If you're looking to refi and make it all in 1 year, this is not the project for you. We're going to be slow and boring and make cash flow every single month, and we're going to sell the home back at the end of the term. So when I do presentations, when I speak to potential joint venture partners, that's what I'm explaining to them, is that's the benefit of, it's kind of that, hands-free, hassle-free. They don't need to collect the rent. They don't need to manage the tenants. They don't need to worry about maintenance. That's everything that we take care of for the joint venture partner. We report to them. We give them a report every quarter saying this is what's going on. We actually physically visit the property for our investors, for ourselves as well too, to make sure the general maintenance, everything is taken care of the property. It's still in good working order. But yeah, for those that, need their money to, velocity of a little bit quicker, or, they want to be in and out in, 3 months, or, we're talking about flip properties where, hey, I can want to do this in 6 months. That's fantastic. That's not our strategy. So, it's like just a different flavor of investing. We don't refinance the property at any point throughout the term. It's sold back at the end. And that's the agreement of the purchase option contract that both parties agree, and now both parties are protected.
The title is under the investor's name.
In some cases, right? Yes. So we've had cases where our joint venture partners are on title, or the corporations that they've opened up for these particular properties. We have other options where Jag Properties is the titled owner, right? And our company, and now we're looking just for capital from investors, right? So there are a few different ways that we can do it. Most traditionally, the majority of our projects, our joint venture partners are on title, their corporations on title. They are protected. we can't go and sell the home out from under them, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, who are you? No, we want to make sure they're protected.
Yeah,
and
I
safe
just want
as
to
well.
clarify that because at some point your credit will max out if you put it all under your corporation or under your personal.
That's right. So yeah, we do both, right? Where a lot of our joint venture partners, and the cool part is now I've it's over 8 years of business now, is that I would say over 80% or so of our joint venture partners have done more than one project. So that they come back, they invest again, they want to help another family, they kind of let the money keep working for them, right? So
that's the beauty of real estate. Sometimes when we're dealing with our joint venture partners, when we try to return the capital, they were like, no, interest only, keep the capital,
keep it going, get it to work, and you're like, we need to find another good project, right? So and it's a blessing.
There are some technical questions that I do want to get into, especially in terms of understanding how the model works, because this really does sound like a viable option for tenant buyers and a viable option for current investors who are sitting on properties and trying to decide what to do with it. So I noticed you mentioned JVs. So are all your clients JV partners in some fashion or form?
That's right. Yep.
All right. So you essentially you enter a partnership, a long-term partnership, and you lock that in. However it looks like on the contract or the ownership, that varies property to property, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. And then when it comes to how you and your company make some money off of this, I'm assuming, is it through monthly property management fees? Is it through a commission on the sale? How does that part work?
So that word joint venture partnership is, to the definition, it is a true partnership.
Got it.
So if the project makes $1, we'll make 50 cents. The joint venture partner makes 50 cents. If it doesn't make any money, we don't make any money. The joint venture partner doesn't make any money. If it loses, the same way, we're going in to supplement. The joint venture partner is going into supplement. So that's the additional security for our joint venture partners, is that we're vetting these clients, the properties, the deals, the structure of it all, as if we are the investor ourselves. We're not just saying we're going to invest like it's our own money. We are investing like it's our own money, because it is. If we have a tenant buyer that's not able to pay after 6 months, we're not making any money. We're not any profitable. We're not taking an upfront fee and saying, hey, good luck, guys. Hopefully everything works out and we'll sell you another one in a couple months or something. Mm-hmm. No, it's a true partnership throughout the program, where the rent collected, the successful sale at the end, that is an even split with our joint venture partner.
Okay,
in that model.
Okay, so does that include the initial deposit? Is that an even split?
The initial deposit is actually 100% to the joint venture partner.
Okay.
So if the tenant buyer has, our minimum is a 3% from the tenant buyer. But if they have the 5%, they'll actually reduce the capital requirement from the joint venture partner. 100% of that initial option consideration goes to the joint venture partner's investment. So it actually reduces it.
You structure it in a way where the passive investor will receive the funds first.
Correct.
Try to recover their
effectively, they still need to make the 20% plus your closing costs, because it's an income property. However, they get credit for the 3%, 5%, 7% of the tenant buyer, what they're providing to the deal. They actually get that credit, and it reduces the amount that the investor actually has to pay.
Okay. And if I came to you with a property and I said, hey, I would like to enter this into your rent-or-own program, we would become JVs at the current property valuation. And then there's a partnership 50-50?
Correct. Yes. So if you bought a property 5 years ago, I might not even ask you what you bought it for. Maybe just out of my curiosity.
Yeah.
But we would say, what's today's market value if that were to sell on the open market today? Let's start there.
Okay.
Then we would go and look for the tenant buyer. Now, typically that's, kind of not the normal strategy. We'll find a tenant buyer first, and then they'll go and choose the property. But we've had many of our joint venture partners or other people come to us and say, we have this property. It's $600,000 at today's market value. Mm-hmm. What we'll do is say, okay, this is the type of tenant buyer that we're looking. They need X amount of income. They need X amount of deposit, and we want to see a credit score in this range. Mm-hmm. And then they have to like the home. Mm-hmm. So if they qualify that, then they can pick that home or any other home that's for sale on the market.
Okay, so and then if that happens, and let's say you come to an agreement, $600,000 valuation today, and let's say you do, I don't know, what do you say an average program is? 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, typically 3 years.
Okay, so let's just say we do a 3-year program, and then in 3 years we're going to say the property is going to be worth, I don't know, $750,000. Okay?
Sure. Okay.
So that means that there's a $75,000 spread between two people.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So does that mean that you would effectively be able to make at the end of that $75,000, and then I make a $75,000 plus the increased portion of whatever's being paid or the rent? Does the rent go to me or does the rent go to you?
Well, this is the beauty of it, is we set up one account for the property itself.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see the monthly rent and the monthly option consideration being collected. So that will go into that account.
Yeah.
Now, whoever your mortgage provider is, you're going to give them the account number 123 for this property. The mortgage will come out of that account. the taxes will come out of the account, the insurance will come out of the account. At the end, there'll be a positive cash flow, and then that money goes to whatever account that you want it to go, and then it goes into our account, and then we do that over and over for 36 months. So that's how every single one of our projects are set up.
So it's literally 50-50 on all of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Have you ever had any situation where you need to do a cash call?
At this point, I'm going to touch wood. We have not. No.
That structure sounds pretty cool, and it sounds like there really are profits there, and it also tells me how you're motivated. Like if I decided to partner with you, you're motivated to increase that purchase price a little bit because first of all, that's more profits for you, but you as an operator are also going to balance out stability. Is there any sweat equity that you throw into that, like property management services? Is that your sweat equity contribution?
That's our end of the deal. That's what we're collecting, what we make out of the deal. That's our responsibilities. Visiting the property, ensuring that tenant buyers are doing the things to improve their credit, save up the down payment, claim their income properly. That's our responsibility. So that's how we kind of split up the list of what to do on this project. We need the capital, we need the financing, but our job is to manage the people, manage the property, make sure everything is going accordingly.
And there's no monthly payment coming out of that. That's just your
That's
There's like we're partners and you're an
deal.
operating partner and then I'm a passive partner.
Precisely.
Have you placed any rent-to-own tenant buyers in the last 90 days?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say what is the average valuation of a property today that you would place them in and the future valuation? And I know that might be a broad question.
Yeah,
but-
so again, we work across the province of Ontario, focused in southwestern Ontario. So you could tell me that, the average purchase prices vary, right? From 400,000 to 700,000, right?
Okay, but nothing over like $1 million, right?
We've not, to date, the highest purchase price that we've bought is $960,000.
Okay.
To date.
All right.
And that's kind of an outlier.
Yeah. Okay. So 900,000. So let's just say if you're doing properties around 600,000, 700,000 current evaluation, 3 years later, maybe 800, 850 or something like that.
Yep.
That is what you're doing. What do the numbers look on that? Like a 3-bedroom home, if you're going to place a tenant, they're going to be paying monthly rent. What would that rent amount look like? Well, of course, less the pity, and they're paying their own utilities. Right?
Yeah. So again, it's based on, like I said, you guys could both be qualified for that $700,000 home, but your payments will be different. The mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, those will be the same. But dependent on how much you need to save, the payment might be like, pull up any of the big bank calculators. Off the top of my head, a $700,000 home, I'm going to guess, I don't know, in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. For a mortgage, I'm going to guess. So that's probably conservative.
Where a regular house would cost, like if you were to rent a regular house today, people are paying like $2,400 plus utilities, $2,800 in some cases plus utilities.
But if you and I go buy a $700,000 home today and we're going to rent it, and our mortgage is $3,000 plus taxes plus insurance, we're not going to rent it for 24, 25, 28.
No. Well, some people do. They just eat the loss, right?
Cash flow is king.
Cash flow is king, right? So in that case, what would a model like that output for a tenant? Like if I was a tenant renting that situation where I would normally pay $2,400 to $2,800 plus utilities, now at the property for a rent-to-own program, would my rent be $35,000 or $4,000 plus utilities?
Yeah, it's tough, and I know I really want to try to get into the numbers with you. It's really tough because every situation is different. Because you might take a mortgage, you're my joint venture partner. You might take a private mortgage, and your interest rate is like 8%, and you're going to go get conventional financing today at 5%. So the payment is going to be different. So we basically, every single project is different.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time. I wish we could put together a, rent a home calculator, but every single person is different. Every situation is a little bit different on how much they need to save, the purchase price of the home, the mortgage interest rate that the joint venture partners.
Okay, so on a low and on a high then, and I know I'm digging for numbers, but on the low and on a high. So a low being like something more on the affordable side for the same 3-bedroom house. On a low, what would a tenant be paying? Principal plus the rest?
And again, it's not. I'm not trying to be evasive whatsoever, but pull up the mortgage calculator on your favorite bank website. See what that mortgage is. Add the taxes, add the insurance, and then the variable payment is if I need to get to, let's just go through the example. So if I'm buying the home for $720,000 at the end of the program, and I need to have 10% saved, which is $72,000.
Yeah.
I started the program with $36,000. Now I need to save up $36,000. The program is 36 months. So I'm going to be paying $1,000 on top of the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. However, you think I'm paying more, but that amount actually gets credited back to the tenant buyer at the end of the program to be used for their down payment. When the bank says, okay, where's your income? Check. Okay, where's your credit? Check. Where's your down payment? Oh, wait, here's $36,000 we gave to JAG day one. Here's 36 monthly bank statements of $1,000 that is going to be applied to my down payment.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with standard rents.
Not really.
Exactly,
I
but
get
but
it.
my question here is that if you have that additional income that's going to be credited towards the purchase price later, and you're kind of consuming that deposit right now on a monthly basis because you distribute the monthly cash flow
Correct.
to all parties,
Yeah.
right? My question is that going to be, well, either way you're buying at a higher price, so okay.
So yeah, because it's credited back
Yeah.
from the appreciated price. So the way that it would work
You
is that we sell
pre-collect
back at
Mhm.
720, the first mortgage is paid out. The investor's initial capital is paid out. The credits that the renter or the tenant buyer has got is paid out, and then there's the profit.
You guys pretty much eat the down payment. So eat, like as in like you consume the down payment now, as opposed to waiting to consume it later, right? So you use it for your operations
Use it for the
now.
purchase.
Yeah.
Well, we use it for the purchase of the home.
Which honestly is a great idea because if for whatever reason tenant change their mind, okay, you move on to the next one, right? Which obviously not a goal, but
It's
at
well,
least
it's
you're
in
protected.
it's essentially it's an equity of the home. If a tenant buyer after a year says, "Oh, I don't like this place anymore. I'm out of here," we have to sell the home to actually realize any of the equity. It's the equity is in the home.
Mm.
The goal is to sell it back to the client with that equity already built in.
Mhm.
We're not reducing the price of the home. If I'm selling it back for $720,000 and I'm giving them a credit of $72,000, now they get the mortgage for the balance.
They change their mind, they still receive that portion back, is what you're saying.
Well, no, we would have to sell the home and there'd be costs associated with selling the home, having an agent listing it, getting the home in a state of repair, if there was damages, landscaping, things like that. And then, yeah, if there is left over that portion, we want to give that back to the client if we can, if we're able to sell. Now, if we're not able to sell and we need to hold on to that, it's not just sitting in a bank account or sitting there, right? It's an
Nice.
equity in the house itself.
No, honestly, you're the first one that's able to explain the whole process in this detail.
I hope so. Doing this for
Because-
close to 10 years now, if I can't explain this, then there's something wrong.
By the way, no, I've talked to some people about it, and I think sometimes what makes it sound sketchy is they're kind of really teetering around like some of like the deep questions of like how the mechanics of it works, and sometimes I feel like it's because either they don't know how it works or it doesn't work.
They always go around and say, it depends. And then we're like, okay, we can't seem to grasp the concept at all, right? But in this case, I think the exit strategy is very clear.
And unfortunately, yes, it does depend. Every client is a little bit different. But if you have the goal in mind of selling the home back to the tenant buyer, everything else works itself out.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
terms of the
But-
purchase and helping
Oh,
the
I
people,
love what
getting
you
them
just
set
said.
up for that, right? Everything else works itself up. If you're doing it just to collect a deposit or just because you're going to make some cash flow for a few months, it's going to fall apart. That can only last for so long.
Yeah.
But if you have the goal in mind to help people to sell the home back, everything else will fall in place.
Okay, so listen, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, to ask you questions about this, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, the best way is get onto our website, jagproperties.com, JAAG properties.com. My email is alfonso@jagproperties.com. You can reach out to me directly. Get in touch with our team, 1-866-JAG-NOW, or info@Jag Properties. We're all in all the social media channels.
Yeah,
we're not
like
hiding.
Jag now.
Jag now. Do
I
that now.
love it.
Don't wait. Don't wait to get into homeownership. Like I said, if we could go back 5, 10, 20 years, what would we be doing? Buying more property,
Yeah, no,
right?
seriously.
Because in the moment, you're like, oh, I'm overpaying for this. This is too much. But then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years go by, you look like a genius.